this was my property.
Okay.
This is what I own, but this was still part of the Kelly property over here. But can you see the stub that's sticking up over there to the left?
Right.
In front of that rock.
Uh-huh.
That's part of the mill. And that stub is, of course, I remember playing in this creek when I was a little girl.
That's the mill set up on that land?
Yes, yes. It's set up on that bank right there. And it was a grist mill, sawmill, and I'm not sure exactly when the mill was built, but the Kellys were all millwrights. They were at least 4 generations of millwrights. John Franklin Kelly was Richard Kelly's son, and he also lived in the house up here, the Kelly home place. But Richard built the house, but he was a millwright. John Franklin Kelly was a millwright, and Richard was a millwright. Barnabas Kelly was a millwright. His father William was a millwright, and the immigrant Barnabas Kelly was a millwright. So they not only did they operate the mills, but they built them.
So did that have a rock wall where the waterfall came over?
It was, the bottom of it was rocks, and from my property, there's a little bluff right over here. You can't see it for the trees now, but there was a rock that was hewn out, and there was a rock base to it. It went across the creek, but it was a log dam, and it was down. When the mill was here, it was dammed up. Okay. The Rocky Plains Post Office was also here, and Barnabas Kelly was the postmaster of Rocky Plains. It operated from 1875 to 1886. When they were building the road, those rocks, they blasted the road when they were building the road, originally building the road. Those were rocks for the blasting. And this used to be, the mill washed away in 1948. It came by flood, and Clear Creek flooded and washed it away. And then in 1974, Darryal, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but 1974, the bridge that went across this was a wooden bridge, and had the big cables, and it washed away in 1974 when all the creeks and rivers. I think we lost more than just this bridge. Then we lost several in the county, and then they built this.
So the water got up that high?
And this bridge is higher than the old bridge.
Didn't the old one kind of come down?
It did. See, this they really leveled this hill here a lot when they built this bridge, and on this side too, because I can remember coming over here, and it was a dirt road. And we sometimes would come from that direction, and the road was real steep down to the bridge. Yeah, so this bridge is a lot higher than the old bridge was.
Okay.
So not far from here, now located on County Road 429, was the Rocky Plains School, also known as Mount Prospect Church. The school consolidated with Double Springs in 1932. Grandpa Kelly did a little ferry service across here, and he had a boat, and he would come across. He would go, from that side over to.
What everybody gets confused at down here, thinking that Godfrey College was on this side of the road, it was not. That's the west. That's the east side of the road. Godfrey College was on the west side of the road. The reason everybody thinks it was on the east side of the road is because there was a house that remained there. I'm going to say it was there in the 70s. Beasleys are the last people I know that lived there. And of course, it was a college, also a high school, had a dormitory, lots of prominent people that have now died went to college there. Burton Burdick for one, Bart Cowart for another, and many, many more. I can't think of all of them to name you right now. But the old college was here, back left, to my left-hand side of the road, west side of the road. And the school, I'm not sure where it was located, Motes School. There was a high school here, a college. Several people graduated from the college that later become business people in Winston County. Sometimes they became politicians. But a couple of them were real good business people. And this is called Motes, and it operated from 1881 until 1911. Professor Robert G. Isbell was postmaster from 1882 to 1884. He was also the start and the professor at the Godfrey College. When he left here, he went to Lamar County and started a college down there that's still in existence. About 89, '88, '89, which was it there? It burned, and they really never built all the buildings back, and then later on that's when he left. And by the way, we're standing in the Cheatham Road right now. It came right through Motes and Godfrey College area. The road, this goes down to Kelly Mill. This is the connecting road to Kelly Mill. And occasionally people would take it. It's a real, back in the day, it was a real rough road. Most of the time they followed, if they're going to Kelly Mill, they would follow the ridge, the other ridge road, and go to it that way. But this, you could come this direction. The road from here, behind us, goes to Double Springs. The road ahead of us will go down to the land that Wyatt Cheatham owned, and where there was a bridge on Clear Creek. And I think that's where we're going to go next. Okay, this is the old Cheatham Road Wyatt Cheatham built. This was his own place right out this direction, behind the gate on the road. And the road went on from here and crossed Clear Creek. He built a bridge. A lot of times the bridge would wash out in high water, and he'd have to build it back. But he charged toll right here, right in here somewhere. And where his exact house was, I don't know. But you can still see in Clear Creek timbers and bolts where the road, the bridge was built across into Cheatham Road. Cheatham Road, like I said, run from about Molden to Tuscaloosa. Okay,
and you missed it.
He had a tavern and a stagecoach stop here and a post office. And, established in what was later to become Winston County. At that time, it was not Winston County. Winston County did not become a county until 1850. So he was real early. He finished the Cheatham Road about 4 years after he started. He started in 1824, but it took him a good 4 years to build the Cheatham Road from south of Molden all the way to down to Tuscaloosa. He had to cross many streams and build several bridges, unlike the Byler Road, which they didn't have to build a bridge on the Byler Road.
It was built about 1940, and people used it in school. There's two schoolhouses at Poplar Springs before this one. So this was the latest Poplar Springs school. One was down near where you turn to go to Nauvoo and Rocky Plains, down in there, where John Rowe used to have a store there across the road from where Poplar Springs grocery is now, which is now closed. But anyway, the schoolhouse was a two-room schoolhouse. It had two good morning heaters, one for each room. And on the left side of it was the first, second, third grade. And that was Mrs. Johnson when I was here back and went to school here in the 5th, 6th grade, 49-50 period.
Is that where you got double promoted?
I got double promoted at Thatch before I got here. No, Winston County a lot rougher schools than Walker County. Yeah, Walker County, I stayed there. I graduated before I was 13 probably. But anyway, Poplar Springs, I was in the 5th grade here, and Mr. Johnson was the principal in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And he was a disciplinarian. He did all the discipline for the school. And as you enter, there's two big rooms, and I used to call it a coat room. And I found out later it was a cloak room. But I call it for years a coat room. But the coat room's on each side of the building. And right in the middle is one foyer. There's only one door, the front door. And there's a foyer there as you go in, and there's a big bucket of water with 2 dippers in it. One dipper with the 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, and one for the 4th, 5th, 6th grade. And I have to admit that I went to Halo the 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade before I went to Thatch. That's what gave me the big jump, you know. I mean, Halo was sort of like a college, you know, as interpreted by people there, of course. And it may be right. But anyway, the school here, most of the 6th grade, in the 6th grade, I believe it was 11 people. And I was 10 years old in the 6th grade. 4 people became 16 that year and quit school. Except one of them went to one school at 1 year at Double Spring. So out of 11 people that graduated at Poplar Springs Elementary School, only 2 of us went to the county high school, because Double Springs was a very urbane metropolitan school that was intimidating to people out here in the country, you know. And so only 2 of us went, and Ray Spain went with me, and after 1 year at Double Springs, he'd had enough of Double Springs, so he dropped out. So I was the only one out of my graduating class here that finished high school, to my knowledge. But a lot of people went to Poplar Springs School. That was all the education they got. 6th grade. They learned to read and write here, and some of the better citizens and more respected citizens never finished high school. And I can name a number of them. I don't want to embarrass anybody. They're hillbillies, and they don't embarrass by how things are, you know. They tell it like it is. But this school was a real function, because a lot of times I tell people I walk to school every day. I don't point out I live down the hill about 200 yards. I said I walked, you know, to school, and barefooted in the snow. Of course, it snowed about twice a year, like it still does. But anyway, the Poplar Springs school was a real growing up experience for me. I was a little bit of a tough kid in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, and I got double promoted. I got the kids a year or 2 years older, and I got to Poplar Springs 5 years older, you know, and 6 years old and 7 years older. And so I learned to be a diplomat here at Poplar Springs, and that served me well. This road connected the Houston-Jasper Road with the Cheatham Road. And of course, the Cheatham Road, as you know, is the 2nd road in the state, toll road, right after the Poplar Road. And the Cheatham Road was really the road that made Winston County, because the Poplar Road went on the far west side of the county up through Haleville and barely touched Winston County, just on the west side. But the Cheatham Road was the road that made Double Springs. And it came through Double Springs and connected with Moulton and what is now pretty close to Highway 33, the Wilderness Road. But the road on the Clear Creek side crossed at Spain's Mill. And Spain built a mill down there. If people, we used to swim a little swimming hole down there. That in the old bridge down on Clear Creek near the current bridge. I think it had been 4 bridges in it there on Clear Creek in the same vicinity. At one time or another, pretty close to 4 bridges. But anyway, on the downside over here on Spain's Mill Road, you could cross, but not, the road goes down is owned by private people now. They discourage people coming down there. But the road goes down those swimming holes. And the actual road itself is a little bit to the left of it, and that's where you ford it. But anyway, before you get to the swimming hole is a very shallow shoal section for about 200 yards. And that's where the actual crossing was. That's a rock bottom. Much of Clear Creek is rock bottom. And you can actually walk it. I have, in the summertime when I want to get out and explore, I walk in the creek. It's the safest place to walk, and it's rock nearly all the way. You can go most of the way from the sewage plant in Double Springs all the way down to Spain's Mill walking in low water, when the water's low. You'll run across a few holes here and there, and where people fish if you're in a boat. But the Spain's Mill Road, and so this was a major little section of central part of Winston County at one time. And the Spain's Ford is when the Houston jail, when the people went up there and got Judge Curtis, Tom P. Curtis out of the jail, the Confederate cavalry, and brought him back towards Jasper. They might have gone to Houston-Jasper Road straight on into Jasper. But they might have cut off on this road over here and came this way. But the legend is that he was killed at Spain's Bluff. And Spain's Bluff is somewhere between the Spain's Mill Ford and where the old road crossed, Houston-Jasper Road crossed. Somewhere in there is Spain's Bluff. And that's he was found with shots in both eyes below the Spain's Bluff.
This was called
2 or 3 miles from there was down the cemetery. So somebody's moved
Malta?
there. That's why I saw it. Where I saw back in the 60s. they moved over there.
M-A-L-T-A,
I've never
where a
liked
school
it.
and post office once existed. This is down at Spain's Mill, where the Spain's Mill, we called it the swimming hole for a long time, but they had a mill down there, the Spains did. The post office was opened in 1899 and only had Samuel D. Spain as the one postmaster and closed in 1906. According to our paper here, we're going to the fox hunting grounds, also called Yorkbird.
Okay, we're at what I've always called the fox hunting grounds, and historically it's known as York and Yorkburg. The road that we just came down was originally the Cheatham Road. If you look on the current county road map, there are 3 partial roads that connect from where we were over around the Godfrey College. Those numbers are 3270, 3090, and 3055. It crossed all of those roads and kept coming on this way. And it come down the what is now County Road 70, on down toward Old Union Church, and where it went on toward Tuscaloosa and into Walker County that way. The York Post Office was established in 1892. Joseph M. York was their first postmaster, most likely named for him. And it changed names to Yorkburg 2 years later in 1894. And in that same year, the post office was located right across the street from where we're standing. Right over in there was an old building. My Aunt Judy and my grandmother Pearline remembered coming down here in the 1960s when they would have fox hunts at night and over on the weekends and have box suppers. The old building that was right across the street. And it was discontinued in 1899. And an interesting note on that is when we turned on this County Road 70, you'll notice that there's another road to the right. If you go down that road, which is part of the Cheatham Road, that is Natus, where the Natus School and Natus Post Office was. When Yorkburg discontinued in 1899, Natus was established just a few months later. And that's within a mile of where we are. And that lasted until 1903, when that was discontinued and the mail was sent to Motes, or the Godfrey College, where we were earlier. Yorkbird also had a school. Basically, it's where Old Union Church is now, about 3 miles on down the road. It was in the same place. It was a one-room building, built of rough, unpainted planks, and the only desks were benches. And that school closed in 1939. It was consolidated with Lynn Elementary School. And Native School was consolidated with Double Springs Elementary in 1938. And the Union Church was established in 1906. 14 charter members. And the first deacons were Francis Bell, Sylvester Trimble, and Marion Omery. And it was named Union because Francis Bell was a Union soldier for the 1st Alabama Cavalry. And he had 3 brothers to die in the Union Army, 1 in the Confederate Army, and his father died while taking care of him in 1862 in Tennessee. And Francis was the only surviving male of his family that participated in the war. Waiting for cars to go by. Union Church joined the Clear Creek Baptist Association in 1908 at New Prospect Baptist Church in Haleville. And what I've always found interesting here, there were the fox hunts that were held here in the mid-1900s. The 2 sheds, one stood right here, and right now the only thing that's still visible are just a few piles of wood. It was heavily damaged in 2005 when Hurricane Katrina came through. The other shed was located just right over here, and in the early 1990s, actually my Martin family had reunions here. It was a popular spot for reunions. It had, at one time, electricity hooked up to it. It had a barbecue pit.
Wow.
It had picnic tables for as long as the sheds were, and they were long sheds. It even had an outhouse. And just right on down in the woods right here, we would always play down in there. There were springs and bluffs and everything else just right down in there.
Oh, that's cool.
No, it was a big thing. There would be large numbers of people come down here to the fox hunt, and they would stay here several days, usually a week. And they would judge the dogs, one for looks and the other for, they actually run them at night and give them scores. And it was a big deal. There would be, I don't know how many people here, there'd be a lot of people here, come here and stay the whole week. It's a big thing for years.
We're heading up to the Rocky Plains Cemetery next.
Okay, Rocky Plains Cemetery, not far from where we are, about 1.5 miles southwest, is a location known as Kaiser Bottoms. Dr. Andrew Kaiser owned the property and claimed that the springs on his property had healing powers. When the Civil War broke out, he was a spy for the South and was the cause of numerous murders of Winston County folk. He was killed in 1864 and buried in the cemetery of his slaves. A stone wall built by the slaves still stands on the property. We are at the Rocky Plains Cemetery, also known as the Thomas Graveyard. The small church you see was built in 1955 and can be seen in the short film that is online and was made in this area in the 1950s. You will notice the small wooden structures built over some of the graves. These are called grave shelters or grave houses. The Alabama Historical Commission defines a grave shelter as a wood structure placed over an in-ground burial, usually with the gable sides made of vertical pickets or boards. Some have boards with decorative jig work and they constructed with doors and windows to resemble houses. Grave shelters were common in
In some areas.
in some areas of the South and are generally associated with the Native Americans and groups of Scotch-Irish ancestry.
Okay, this concludes our South Winston County tour.